Good afternoon, sir. Please, I'm Chinaza. I'm here to see Chioma.
Did you have an appointment with her?
No, she's my sister. Just tell her I'm here.
Hello, madam. Someone is here to see you, she said. She is Chinaza with a 5-year-old David.
Okay, I see them on the camera. I don't know anyone by that name and never allow anyone in here.
You cannot enter.
Please, we need help.
I'm sorry, access denied.
She washed clothes before sunrise so her sister could go to school. She raised her sister's abandoned baby like her own son. She traveled to the city to find her and stood at her gate with nothing but love. And her sister looked through the intercom and said,
"Never allow anyone in here."
She had no idea that the quiet woman her in-laws later brought from the village was the sister she had just abandoned at the gate. Don't go anywhere, because you don't want to miss any part of this story. Mama Chi and her 2 daughters lived in a town called Agbara. The elder sister was Chinaza, while the younger was Chioma. Their father had not been a rich man, but he had been a good one. He kept food on the table. He kept the girls in school. He kept Mama Chi smiling. And when he died, suddenly, without warning, the family didn't just lose a father. They lost everything that came with him. Before the grave was even fully covered, the relatives arrived. Uncles with greedy eyes and rehearsed sympathy. Cousins who had never visited once while the man was alive. They came with fake tears and left with real property. The land, the small shop, and the savings hidden under the mattress. By the time the mourning period ended, Mama Chi was standing in an empty house with 2 young daughters and absolutely nothing else. Hunger moved in like a tenant that refused to leave. Mama Chi began selling herbs and local food by the roadside just to keep them alive. Some days, she made enough for 1 meal. Most days, she didn't. And the stress of it all was slowly destroying her body from the inside, one illness after another, each one leaving her a little weaker than before. But here is where this story truly begins. There was only enough money to send 1 daughter to school, just 1. Chinaza was the elder. She had every right to choose herself. Her primary school teachers had already marked her as exceptional, the kind of student who lights up a classroom without even trying. But Chinaza looked at her younger sister, at Chioma's wide, hopeful eyes, and she quietly made a decision that would shape the next decade of her life. Chioma will go to school. I will work. Just a 17-year-old girl, choosing to bury her own dreams so someone else could live theirs. While Chioma sat in classrooms, Chinaza's hands were never still. She was up before the sun every morning, washing other people's clothes in cold water. She fried akara and puff-puff by the roadside in the afternoon heat. She cut roots and bundled herbs for her mother to sell. She carried loads at the market. She cleaned compounds. She ran errands for neighbors who paid her just enough. Every single naira she earned had a purpose before it even touched her palm. This one is for Chioma's school fees. This one is for Mama's medication. This one is for food tonight. This one is for Chioma's textbooks. This little one, this is for kerosene so they can see in the dark. She kept nothing for herself. Not for clothes, not for shoes, not for any small pleasure that might have made the hardship easier to carry. And at night, when the whole town was sleeping and the only sound was Mama Chi's labored breathing, Chinaza would lie on her thin mat and whisper into the darkness, "God, please let Chioma succeed. If she succeeds, we will all finally be fine." That was the plan. That was the only plan. Chioma's success was supposed to be all of their success. Her degree was supposed to be all of their escape route. So when Chioma finally got admission into university, the family celebrated like they had won something. Mama Chi wept tears so loud the neighbors came outside to see what had happened. For once, the tears were not from pain. Chinaza carried her sister's bag to the motor park herself. She pressed money into Chioma's hands, quietly saved over weeks. She held her sister's face and said, "Make us proud." Chioma was smiling. She looked so full of promise. But promise, as they say, is not the same thing as character. In her second year in university, Chioma came home. She was pregnant. The man responsible had been smooth and convincing, the kind of man who knows exactly what to say and exactly when to disappear. The moment he heard the word pregnant, he was gone, vanished completely, as if he had been a ghost all along. Chioma arrived home, ashamed, swollen with a secret she had no idea how to explain. And Mama Chi wept for 3 days straight. The neighbors talked, some with pity, some with that particular satisfaction that small towns sometimes reserve for people who dared to aim higher. Chinaza said nothing for several days. She sat with the hurt. She sat with the anger. She sat with the crushing weight of watching everything they had sacrificed begin to unravel. And then she stood up. "You will go back to school," she said. "After you give birth, bring the baby to me. I will raise him as my own." The room went completely silent. Chioma stared at her sister. Mama Chi covered her mouth with both hands. Chinaza had not simply offered help. She had offered her entire life again, without hesitation, without negotiation, without asking for a single thing in return. Chioma gave birth to a baby boy. They named him David. And Chinaza took that baby and pressed him to her chest like he was the most precious thing in the world. Because to her, he was. She didn't see a burden. She didn't see a consequence. She saw a baby who needed a mother. And she became one. She carried David on her back in the market while she worked. She woke at 2 in the morning when he cried. She counted his tiny fingers and sang to him in the dark. She learned what it meant to love someone completely without receiving any credit for it. And Chioma went back to school. Chioma graduated. The family celebrated again. Another milestone, another reason to hold on. "I'm going to the city to look for work," Chioma told them. "Once I settle down, I'll come back for all of you. I promise." In the beginning, she called often. Her voice on the phone was warm and full of city energy. She was searching. She was almost there. She was going to make it. And when she did, she was going to take them all with her. Then the calls became less frequent. Then the phone would ring and ring with no answer. Then the number stopped going through at all. The family that has sacrificed everything for Chioma sat in their small house and waited. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, nothing. No letter, no visit, no money was sent through anyone, no message, not even a rumor. Mama Chioma stopped asking about Chioma out loud. But at night, Chinaza could hear her mother crying softly in the dark, talking to herself, asking the ceiling what she had done wrong and where she had failed. Little David was growing fast. He called Chinaza Mommy because she was the only mother he had ever known. Chinaza never corrected him. What was she going to say? Go and find the woman who chose to forget you existed. She worked harder than ever. She sold in the market during the day. She nursed Mama Chi at night. She helped David with homework by using a lantern light. She carried everything. And she did it without breaking. At least not where anyone could see. But something inside her was quietly tearing. She just refused to let it show. Then, one afternoon, a woman returned from the city and gathered a small crowd outside with breathless news. "I saw Chioma," she said, "with my own 2 eyes. She's living in a mansion, security men at the gate, expensive car. She's married and the husband is a very big man." Chinaza heard it from inside the house. She sat completely still. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't overturn anything. She just sat there in the same house she had spent years holding together with her bare hands and she let the full weight of it settle over her. Chioma was rich. Chioma was fine. Chioma had simply, deliberately, chosen not to come back. The woman helped them gather more details, the area of the city, the estate, and after days of sitting with herself, wrestling with her pride and her pain, Chinaza made a decision. She would go and see her sister. Not to embarrass her, not to beg, not to cause a scene, just to see her, just to know it was real, just to look her in the eye. Chinaza arrived at the mansion on a hot afternoon, wearing her best wrapper and carrying nothing but her dignity. The gate was enormous, freshly painted black iron, tall enough to make you feel small just standing in front of it. Uniformed security guards stood on either side. Beautiful flowers were planted in neat rows along the fence. Everything about the place said, "You do not belong here." Chinaza walked up anyway. She approached the gateman and said quietly, "Please, I am here to see Chioma. I am her sister." The gateman looked over her. The simple wrapper, the worn sandals, the face that had seen too many hard mornings. And then he picked up the intercom phone. Chinaza waited. She could hear it ringing on the other end. She could feel her own heartbeat in her throat. Part of her was still hoping, still believing that her sister would hear her name and come running out through that enormous gate with tears and apologies and explanations. Then she heard the voice. She recognized it immediately. Chioma's voice, now smoother, more polished, shaped by years of city living, calm and clear through the phone. "I don't know her. Don't let any stranger in." The gateman put the phone down. He looked at Chinaza with something that might have been pity, or discomfort, or both. Chinaza had heard every single word. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice or pound the gate or fall on the ground. She turned around slowly and she walked away. She went home. She said nothing to Mama Chi about what had happened. Some pain is too heavy to describe out loud. Months passed. Life continued because it always does, whether you are ready or not. Then came the annual cultural festival. The whole town was alive with color, music, food, and the particular joy that only comes when an entire community decides, for one day, to set their problems aside. Chinaza had brought David along. Mama Chi sat with the older women, watching the dancers with tired but happy eyes. That was when the expensive cars arrived. Chief Williams, a powerful businessman from the city, the kind of man whose name people say with a certain careful respect, had come to the festival with his youngest son, Ethan, a quiet boy with sad eyes who had been unwell for years in ways that no hospital abroad had been able to fully explain. Without warning, Ethan collapsed. Right in the middle of the celebration, the boy dropped to the ground like something had simply switched off inside him. Panic erupted immediately. People screamed, others froze. Someone was shouting for water, someone else was already on the phone. Chief Williams was on his knees beside his son, his powerful hands shaking and completely useless in that moment. And then a calm voice cut through all of it. Chinaza. She had seen something like this before. Her grandmother, a woman who had spent her whole life learning the language of roots and leaves, had treated similar episodes. While everyone else was shouting, Chinaza was already moving. She gathered specific herbs. She prepared a remedy with focused, quiet confidence. She knelt beside the boy and administered it carefully. The crowd watched in silence. Ethan's eyes opened. Not after an hour, not after frantic phone calls to doctors. Within minutes, the color began returning to the boy's face. Chief Williams looked up at this woman in a simple wrapper kneeling beside his son, and his expression shifted completely. "Who are you?" he asked. Chief Williams was not a man who begged, but he came close. He wanted Chinaza to come to the city, to properly care for Ethan, to be close when the episodes came, to use whatever knowledge she had to help his son live a normal life. When Chinaza explained that she could not leave her sick mother behind, the man did not hesitate. Then bring everyone, your mother, the boy, all of you. There's enough space for you all, please. They moved into the mansion. It was like stepping from one world directly into another. Mama Chi slept in a real bed with clean sheets and wept quietly from sheer relief. David ran through hallways that seemed to stretch forever, his laughter bouncing off walls that had never heard that kind of joy before. Chinaza had her own room, quiet, cool, peaceful, a luxury so foreign to her that the first night she barely slept, just lying there listening to the silence, not quite believing it was real. She remained exactly who she was. She did not let the wealth change her posture or her manner. She greeted the house staff with genuine respect. She focused on Ethan with patience and consistency. She sat with Mama Chi in the evenings and listened to the same stories she had heard 100 times, as if hearing them for the first time. And that was when Chief William's second son began to pay attention. Derek. He had been burned before, by women who want you only for his money and status. He had become someone who watched carefully before he opened anything: his home, his trust, his heart. He watched Chinaza. He saw how she moved through rooms full of expensive things without once reaching for any of them. He saw how she talked to the gate man the same way she talked to his father. He saw how she held David's hand during thunderstorms. He saw how she sat beside Ethan at night. Derek went to his older brother Michael one evening and told him what he was feeling about the new woman their father had brought in from the village caring for Ethan. Michael listened and nodded. If she is a good woman, that is the only thing that matters, village or no village, a single mother or not. But Chioma was in the room not knowing it was her sister they were talking about because they have not been to the mansion since Chinaza came. She had been sitting quietly on the other side, half listening, and now she looked up with that particular expression of someone who has appointed themselves the guardian of standards they themselves have never actually met. "Don't lower yourself," she said smoothly. "You can find a proper city woman. Why marry someone brought in from a village and a single mother? That's ridiculous, brother-in-law." Derek looked at her calmly. He said nothing, but in his mind, the decision was already final. Chief Williams organized a large charity event at the mansion. Society people filled every room: wealthy friends, business partners, women dripping in lace and jewelry, photographers capturing everything for the kind of social media pages where everyone's life looks perfect. The air smelled of expensive perfume and carefully arranged flowers. Chinaza had helped with the preparations quietly, arranging things, making sure Ethan was comfortable and calm, staying mostly in the background the way she always did. She was standing near the entrance hallway when a new wave of guests arrived through the main door. She looked up and everything stopped. Chioma walked in. She was wearing a gown that probably cost more than Chinaza had earned in her last 2 years of market work. Her jewelry caught the chandelier light with every step. Her skin was flawless. Her posture was the posture of a woman who had spent years learning how to walk into rooms and own them. She was on the arm of Michael, Chief William's eldest son, her husband, and she was smiling, the smile of someone who had never known a single difficult morning in her life. Then her eyes moved across the hallway, casually, the way rich people scan rooms, and landed on Chinaza. The smile did not disappear. It froze. For one terrible second, Chioma's entire face showed the truth. The recognition, the fear, the calculations firing behind her eyes all at once. Then she composed herself. She laughed at what Michael said. She turned him gently in a different direction. But she could feel Chinaza standing in that hallway for the rest of the evening, like a presence that could not be moved, like a truth she had been running from for 5 years and had somehow run directly into. Here is the story Chioma had told Michael. She was an orphan. No parents, no siblings, no family connections of any kind. She had survived alone, built herself up alone, and arrived in his life alone. Clean, uncomplicated, free of any background that might embarrass him or his family. For the traditional introduction ceremony, the moment when both families must sit together and be seen, Chioma hired people. A well-dressed man to play her wealthy uncle, an elegant woman to play her aunt. She briefed them like a director preparing actors for an opening night performance, coached their answers, rehearsed their mannerisms. Michael's family had welcomed them warmly. Nobody suspected a thing. And David, her own child, her own blood, the child Chinaza had been raising for 5 years, she had erased him completely from her story. Told Michael she had never had a child, cut the boy from her history the way you cut a damaged page from a book. 5 years of lies, stacked on top of each other, all holding perfectly. Until tonight. Thanks for listening and watching. Let us know your thoughts about this story in the comment section. What do you think will happen between the two sisters now that they meet? Subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next video.